Hi there, I'm Ray from People Incorporated's Training Institute.
Hi, I'm Russ Turner, and I'm the director of People Incorporated Training Institute. Welcome to our training series with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. People Incorporated is a mental health agency located in the Twin Cities, and we've been around since 1969. And we do training. We do corporate training for our employees. We also do training for different organizations like yourselves.
And People Incorporated, as the greater nonprofit, is involved in many different programs, from things like therapy, psychiatry, and groups to community outreach programs, chemical dependency treatment, and we do have many teams that are in the homeless outreach field and work with MnDOT workers on a day-to-day basis. And this is where MnDOT reached out for some mental health awareness training for their staff that especially may interact with people experiencing homelessness. Because that's a tough thing to do. So the tips that come along with this training series are going to help your staff and coworkers handle these situations with more resilience, be able to keep work stress at a minimum, and be able to get back to work safely.
We're going to present some tips and best practices from the mental health field, things that help with day-to-day interactions with people who might be stressed, people who might be struggling a little bit in kind of what's going on.
So the main purpose of this training series is awareness and resilience and best practices. And we're giving you this training video today because you'll be leading the conversation that follows each video. In your staff meetings, they'll take about 15 minutes to watch a video, and then about 10 to 15 minutes after that where you'll lead a discussion to debrief the video.
Yeah, leading the discussion is probably something that you're not used to doing. So we want to give you a few trainer tips about how to do that.
There'll be some questions that'll come with each outline, just some sample questions that you'll be able to use to start conversation, or even if you're not sure how those questions are working, just to come off with something when you lead a conversation like, so what do you think of what we saw today? And you might get some negative feedback, you might get some notes, some questions that you're not prepared to answer, but that's okay. We'll give you some tips a little later on in this video. But first, let's just take a look at what is included in this video and why you're the one doing that.
So the idea is that as you have your crews do their work, it's likely that sometimes they'll come across people, situations, maybe even items that are outside of their realm. And they're probably already noticing this. What we want to do is raise awareness of some of the mental health components that come with interacting with a population of people who are living outside, experiencing homelessness, and sometimes mental health problems. And as trainers, what we do is we want to bring that awareness up to help people understand what they're looking at, what they're seeing, what's going on, so that they are a little bit better informed about how to proceed with those people.
And the videos that you'll be sharing with your employees will give them a lot of information to help them understand the big picture and some skills to get through the practical day-to-day things. You'll be leading this conversation with your team members, and you're the best person for the job. We'd love to come out and be able to interact with every team at every truck station, but that's not really possible, especially in today's social distancing. And that's great because you know your staff, you know their day-to-day operations, and you know what they're going to experience, and you can help them apply this information to what makes sense to their day-to-day job.
Yeah, and as the team lead, it's very important that you serve as a positive role model for the material, that your attitude is one of being open, of learning, and being willing to take a look at this in terms of like how this can be beneficial.
And this is some tough material. You're going to hear some resistance from your staff. It's not going to be fun for everybody, but you're in the right position to receive this feedback. You don't have to answer every question, but to be able to take notes and at least just let them know that their concerns are valid. You'll also have resources to refer to on this training series website. The best thing about this is you already meet with your staff. You're already there for your staff meetings, and you're going to be taking just a part of that, 15 minutes to watch a video, and then 10, 15 minutes to discuss and get some input and some feedback, just to open up discussions, not solve problems, but just to get that communication going so that your team can all be on the same page.
So what we'll do next is we're going to give you a rundown of what the different modules are, so that you know exactly how the training series was put together and what the order is.
Starts off with a very easy introduction. Module 1, the unsheltered population. A lot of stats, demographics, and a couple of concepts that we're going to introduce about dealing with stress and trauma that will be kind of a recurring theme throughout the different modules. Module 2 is called situational awareness.
Yeah, this module is about what kind of situations workers are likely to experience, what they're likely to be walking into.
Lots of situations and human experiences to be aware of. Module 3, be prepared, which will give some tips to the workers on how to be prepared internally and externally, like with PPE and different things that they're going to put in their red book as they get ready for their job for the day.
Okay, so module 4 is called Interacting with People Experiencing Homelessness. And what we'll do in that one is introduce some best practices from the mental health field about how to talk to folks real briefly, so that situations don't become escalated, don't become confrontational, and keep things nice and calm.
And that allows people to get through these situations and be able to get back to work and assess what safety risks are going on when there's an interaction, so that we can all get back to work and do what we need to do. In Module 5, something else to be very aware of are the different site dangers. A lot of physical items that could be encountered as a person is working on a roadside work site that may or may not have had an encampment at it. Things may be cleared off, but there are still dangers that could be hidden underneath grasses, bushes, or even buried. So we'll talk a bit about those different site dangers and some things to look out for in Module 5.
Yeah, Module 6, we come back to that idea of being internally prepared by looking a bit at personal wellness, the effects of stress on the body, the toxic effect of chronic stress. We'll talk a little bit about secondary trauma, what it is, how it manifests, and what to do to stay healthy long term.
And resources from the state that are available to employees and how to use them to stay low stress and to manage situations after they happen. Module 7 will introduce some of the partnerships to your staff so that they understand that they're not required to do all the work. They can stay within their scope, but that there are other partners to come in, such as outreach workers from other nonprofit agencies and other government agencies, as well as how and when to call into dispatch the different kinds of situations that people can come out and handle with the procedures of a homeless encampment and working around it to be able to be safe for themselves, be safe for the general public, as well as those experiencing homelessness or being present on a MnDOT right-of-way.
So some tips about leading the discussion. I think it's important that we use real strong terminology. So, we're going to use the word we, we're going to use the word us, that kind of thing. That shows that we're part of a training series altogether. And also, when we refer to people who are outside, we refer to them in what we call person-centered language, people who experience homelessness, people who have a mental illness. And this builds a respectful way of looking at what's happening rather than a sort of judgmental, blaming type of like, who are these people and why are they out there?
And as you get resistance from employees asking questions like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Why do I need to know this? This isn't my job. What kind of things would you say, Russ, to a team member that gives feedback from a training like that?
So what I think is that the purpose of the training series is to build empathy between the MnDOT crews and the people that they may encounter. So one way to promote that is for the supervisor leading the discussion to model that. So for example, if someone says, well, why are we doing this? First start with reflecting the idea back to the employee that it's a little unusual and that they're a bit surprised that they're involved in this training. I might say something like, so it seems to you like this type of training isn't really something that you think you should be doing, and kind of start there. Let that idea exist, sort of demonstrate that it's valid. That's the way to do that. And then answer the question, say, well, we're going to be looking at some mental health related things and homelessness related things that will raise our awareness and help us deal with situations better and more safely.
To be prepared for things when they come up, not necessarily that they have to do every last little interaction, but that when they happen, they're going to be prepared to handle it in a safe way. And that will start off with how you relay this information to them, being able to let them know that, yes, this is challenging, and to confirm to them, no, we're not trying to make you social workers or therapists or solve the problem of homelessness, but just how to handle this situation in a safe way, in a respectful way.
Validate that it is outside of their scope. Say, you know, I totally understand, and I can see that it is a difficult thing to have to work with people experiencing mental illness. You're not a social worker. However, if we look at one or two best practices, that can make it go better when we're out there.
And then as you're leading the discussion, doing the debriefing after these videos, you might find some resistance to people who just don't really want to participate in the discussion after the video. How can you validate a situation like that?
If people don't want to be involved in a discussion, then it has to be okay for that to be the case. So I would say, okay, it sounds like you guys, you folks don't want to talk. That's okay. Let me reiterate a couple of key points. And, you know, if you have follow-up questions later, this is, you know, how to get in touch with me.
And there'll be questions that you won't be prepared to answer. You don't need to answer, but you can accept that question, jot it down, and pass it along to the homeless encampment team. Again, there is a website within MnDOT's internal intranet to be able to have as a centralized information for this training series.
One thing that can happen when you open up material like this is you sometimes may get a participant who wants to talk a lot about a particular situation or like a story that they have. What do you think about that?
That could be helpful. This isn't a question and answer. This isn't a test that you're giving them. It's just to open up and share about experiences and best practices. And maybe someone on the team watching the video says, I've dealt with that before, and this is what I did. And then maybe somebody else pipes up and they start a little conversation themselves. I think it's okay to let that roll as long as it stays on the subject.
I do too. And then the supervisor leader can maybe ask, you know, that's interesting. What helped and what didn't help? And often people know, and it's worth sharing.
And that's why the discussion guide will kind of come with some sample questions to help debrief. But you know your folks that you work with, lead that authentically, just how you would talk in a normal thing. And recognizing it's not easy when that happens, because we're all trying to get our work done. And when all of a sudden there's an interruption to work, that can kick us into a stress response, and we have to be able to readjust, try to get back to baseline so we can get back to work when crazy things happen.
In fact, for the workers, a really good line to use with people out there is, listen, I'm not a social worker. I understand you have a difficult situation here. I've I've shown up here to do this job. Let's work something out. That kind of approach is the one that usually works the best.
And that's why we encourage that partnering language, like we and us. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to work with them all the way through the problem, but for that moment, we're in that situation together. And so they'll get some tips on that. And hopefully, as you watch the videos, you'll learn some things that you can apply in your leadership role as well.
We're very pleased to be able to provide training material like this to MnDOT. For us, this is the kind of education that we engage with all the time. And so we think it's very important. We hope that it starts good dialogue, good discussions, good questions. And ultimately, as you work through it with your team, you'll see that it's basically a safety training. That's what it really boils down to. We want our workers out there to be able to do their jobs. We're also concerned for people who are unsheltered. And so bringing those together and thinking about how those interactions go, this is a really important piece of our work, because people's mental health can be pretty fragile, and that's not just the folks outside, that's the workers too. So we believe it to be a very, very important dialogue, and we're really delighted to be doing it.
Yeah. All in all, it is a safety presentation. It's about physical safety for the workers and the general public and the people that are in the MnDOT right of way, as well as though the emotional and the cognitive processing, all those things, all those components together will be addressed in this training series. But it's not all about mandates as much as it is about awareness, understanding, and being able to react in a way that keeps everything moving along safely as we all are in together to get from point A to point B. So that's our video for today. Just a little introduction so that you feel a little more prepared to this. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch this and ask questions and pass that feedback along.
Thanks for leading the discussions, and thanks for showing the way with your teams and opening up those dialogues.
We're happy to partner with you and look forward to working together for a long time.
Thanks.